All right, guys, welcome to another Elvis Diner. I'm Michael. This is Jay. This is, I believe, our fifth episode of the Elvis Diner. We welcome you guys and thank you for joining. This is where we just talk pretty much everything Elvis, and it's just a discussion that you guys can leave your comments and your thoughts and everything. And we just pretty much talk on here for an hour and we just discuss stuff that's going on in the Elvis world and pretty like we said, everything Elvis. So we're just gonna get started here in a few seconds and let some people join. And again, thanks for you joining. It's been a while since we've been on here, so we're happy to be back. All right, we got Emily saying hello. Hi, Emily. All right. All right, so it looks like we got enough people on here. So again, thank you guys for joining. We come on here, we try to about once a month, and we just talk everything Elvis. We've been away for a while, travel, and as you can see, we have a new studio. That's what we've been working on. So we'll kind of get into that in a little bit. But hope you guys are having a great day. If you haven't seen, we put out a video about I think a month ago, and it was a awesome video of our time with Ron Strauss, the co-pilot for the Lisa Marie, and we took him back on the Lisa Marie during Elvis week, and that was just an incredible experience. And it looks like we had a lot of people watch that, so hopefully you guys enjoyed it. I mean, myself for one, really enjoyed being on the plane with him.
Yeah.
He just had some incredible stories, and that was just an awesome thing that we will remember.
Tell them a little bit about give them a little bit of history on what we wanted to do based on what really happened. We were trying to do the right thing and, just give them a little bit of background for those that haven't seen it, what we did, what the video's about, and then how we had to actually, we wanted to do a live interview on the plane with him walking through the plane, but it just didn't work that way.
Yeah, originally we were gonna, because we met with Ron during Elvis week, and we brought up the idea to take him back on the Lisa Marie, and he was all for it. And we went up there and we talked to the people at Graceland, and they said that would be fine. And it was kind of like a gray area, like if we were able to record or not. And so we ended up filming on the plane, but after the fact and after we did the interview, we weren't sure if we were allowed to post it, so we only ended up posting the audio portion of the interview, but we hope that later down the road that we can post like the video with the audio and everything, just post the full interview. But for the time being, we have to post only the audio part. So we apologize for that, but hopefully you guys enjoyed what we were able to post.
We try to do things as, ethical. That's one of our big, uh, keystones, if you will, is
Mhm.
to try to do things ethically, if that's even a word, ethically,
Mhm.
ethical.
Ethical.
Ethical. We try to be ethical. All right. So with that in mind, we we definitely, I guess we kind of crossed the bounds a little bit when we actually filmed, because I think Michael and I agreed that we looked at it like, this is going to be a once in a lifetime shot right here. So we took it, but then we didn't feel comfortable about actually posting it. And so we attempted to call Graceland about 25 times.
At least.
And yeah, so got a lot of frequent flyer miles on the old voicemail there at Graceland. But yeah, it just didn't work out, and we just decided to roll the way we did. So it did well. People seemed to really enjoy it. What I liked most about that thing was, I was thinking about this after we did it. I was like, if you talk to a band member, that's somebody that worked with him on stage in front of 20,000 people, so not really intimate,
Mhm.
but your pilot on an airplane, pretty intimate location, and to have somebody say, this is what it was like, this is kind of what he did on the plane, this is how he acted, and just, and again, one of those people that were with him quite a bit that just spoke of how he never acted like a superstar.
Mhm.
Said it just seemed like just some regular person getting on the plane. So that was cool.
Yeah, folks from Always Elvis say that you will never get a call back from them, and
Yeah.
trust them that they know. But we tried, but it's just it's kind of like an iffy thing, because we were told by Graceland that it could be like a copyright issue, at least for the mansion part of it. And so we just didn't want to risk something happening uh, on our end and, you know, it affecting our page or whatever. So we just decided to do the audio portion. But somewhere down the line, we'll probably find a way to post the video portion. So, but overall, we just had a great time, and we hope that the stories you had never heard before there was some stuff that I had never heard before, so that was really cool for us to do.
Yeah, and if you're an airplane person, if you love airplanes, he tells some pretty cool stories from a pilot standpoint, outside of his relationship with Elvis, which I thought was really cool. I love the bomb threat in Pittsburgh,
Hmm.
so quintessential Elvis, right? Hey, been doing this, I've had I've had death threats for 20 years. Let's go home, put the plane in the air. And he said, well, we've been ordered by what did he say? It was the FBI, right?
Mm-hmm.
FBI said return to the taxi back and return. And no, they're going home.
Yeah. But speaking of Graceland, this popped into my head. I don't know if you guys saw, and I don't know the entire details, so some of this might be wrong, but if I am, please correct me. I did see somewhere where I think they're going to be doing a temporary um, exhibit at Graceland where they're going to display a bunch of the red furniture that was in Graceland in the 70s, kind of like a mock living room of Graceland to show people what the red carpet looks like. So I don't know if you guys heard that. And then I think that's what I saw. So if I'm wrong, please correct me. But I think I saw that they're going to start putting out the red furniture. So that'll be cool to see. Just something that popped into my head. So we got Paul Sweeney on here saying your new set looks clean and professional. Thank you. Yeah. So for those that have been watching us for a while, this is our new setup, our new studio. We kind of transformed one of our rooms in our house and made it our Elvis room. So this is where we will be doing our videos from now on. And some of this stuff will change over time. But right now, this is kind of a little studio corner that we're going to be doing stuff in. So we'll try to show you guys some of it and go on from there. So,
Does our on-air light bother anybody? Is it a pain to look at it on the thing? Because to be honest with you, we just do it for I don't know, for crazy reasons. I don't know. Think we're cool or something. I don't know, but we don't really need it in here because we're in here, so we know we're on air. So the place to put it would be outside the door. So
yeah.
Anyway.
All right, I got the video, the live stream playing on my phone. It looked like we were skipping there for a little bit. So if there's something that you guys missed, just let us know. Yeah, so I guess we can just kind of explain what we have behind us. We got some posters of photos that we really liked. The one behind my head is a photo or a poster that I bought from Keith Alverson in Memphis last Elvis week, not this previous one, but the one before. I really liked the photo, so that was the first poster that I had gotten from him. And then the one right here is of Elvis in Bloomington, 1974, and that was taken by George Hill. We met him this past Elvis week, and he was just an awesome, awesome guy to meet, as well as Keith. And so we put a Keith Alverson and a George Hill because they were two incredible Elvis photographers, went to a lot of shows, and they were both really kind to us. So we wanted to include them into our room. There's a couple we have some 8x10s from George Hill, and eventually we'll be getting another Keith Alverson poster down the line. But
we highly recommend, and this is not a commercial. They did not ask us to do this, and they're not sending us free pictures for it. But highly recommend to go online and look at both of their collections, and you can order their stuff, and they'll send it to you really nicely wrapped and very protected. We've always had great luck with them. We consider both of them. We've known Keith longer.
Mm-hmm.
We consider him a good friend, but George Hill, you meet the guy, at least our luck was, we met him, and he's one of those people that you felt like, we've known him for 20 years. But what was really nice about that is we went down to the Mid-South Coliseum and shot a video down there. So we had some issues with it, and so we're gonna have to do a redo on that, and that's we're gonna get that fixed here very soon. So just bear with us.
And yeah, and when we went this past Elvis week, that was the first Elvis week that George Hill had been to in I think 20 years.
Mhm.
So yeah, if you want to purchase any of Keith Alverson's photos, you can order directly from him. And then if you want to buy any photos from Derek or from George Hill, you can contact Derek Phillips. He's the curator for George's
Mhm.
photos, and a couple other Elvis photographers. I forget the other gentleman that he curates for. And then so somebody's asking. So we're moving to the other wall. So the frame on the top. Did you have something?
Yeah, I just want to say if you move your melon there just a little bit one way or the other,
Mm.
which I can't tell. Anyway, that picture right there. First time I saw that picture, um, like he said, that's Keith Alverson's picture. And literally, and Michael can back me up on this. When you look at that picture, you can literally count individual strands of hair on Elvis's head. That picture is probably one of the most phenomenal on stage pictures I've ever seen as far as clarity. So I just wanted to get that cleared up.
Yeah, his because this was from Huntsville '75 during that May-June '75 that he was doing in Huntsville, where he did a handful of shows back to back, and George and Keith were both at those shows. I don't believe that they knew each other at the time, but there is a lot of photos taken from those shows from both of them and a couple other photographers. So Huntsville, you'll find a lot of photos of, but that's from Huntsville '75, and then that is from Bloomington '74.
And those guys, Michael and I talked quite a bit about this. Those guys are really a huge part of the backbone of the Elvis world, if you think about it. I was thinking about it while we were down there talking to him, and I was standing there looking at him, and I'm going, man, what if these guys didn't exist? Yeah, pictures would have been taken and were taken by different people, some other great photographers, absolutely. But these guys were just fans that followed Elvis literally all over the country. I mean, what George said, 65 shows, right?
Yeah, just
I
about.
mean, so there's some of us that never saw him, and then there's guys like him that traveled the country to pursue his hobby and to pursue a guy that he just loved to death and adored, and took so many pictures. And just think without these guys. So next time you look at these pictures, just kind of remember, we always try to pay homage to different people in the Elvis world. Elvis's pilot, the band members, the bodyguards, all those people, because it, like we've said in the past, it takes a full group to
Yeah.
put that man on stage.
Yeah. Paul Sweeney said Harold Newton. Thank you, Paul. That's the other gentleman. Yeah, Derek curates them. I've been collecting George and Harold's pictures since about April, I think. So when we went down to Memphis, I brought a photo album of all the pictures that I had collected of George's, and I showed it to him, and he thought that was really cool. And he signed a page on the front of it, and that was the first meeting that we had with him. So the reason I like George's photos a lot, I like both of them, but George went to a lot of these shows in the July '74 tour that I like, Columbus and Bloomington. Uh, there was 5 shows that he went back to back during that tour. Niagara Falls he went to, so there's a lot of pictures from those shows that I really liked. And he has a great story about how he was able to go to all of those shows that you'll hear later.
Yeah, we'll get that interview fixed. I think we're gonna have to just make a trip down. He invited us down, so we'll go down and get that fixed, and bring you one of my favorite. I'll just tell a brief little story just so you know kind of what is coming your way. Is he told a story about how he would go to these places and look for different ways to get in, because he was a young guy at the time. And he said he would go and found out at one, I forget what city he said he rolled into, didn't have tickets. And a guy walked up to him and said, "Hey, we're part of Elvis fan club. Would you hand out our literature and we'll give you a free ticket into the show?" And so that's kind of how he did it. So
Yeah. Yeah. So going back to what the someone was asking, so you got Keith Alverson behind me, George Hill, Bloomington '74, and then the 3 frames that we got here. We have a little collage that we have from Elvis's show in Cincinnati '77. I don't know if you can tell, but in the center on the bottom of the top frame, we have a ticket, and then we have two photos of the building, and then we have some rare photos from the show that we purchased. And so we made it into a little collage. And then the middle frame is three photos from him in Indianapolis on October 5th, 1974, from the evening show. And we have Indianapolis, Indiana, the Expo Center date and time. And then the bottom one is a piece of memorabilia that I bought because, some of you know, I love the June July '74 tour. This was a advertisement for a radio station in Columbus. For they were playing Elvis nonstop leading up to his show in Columbus. So it says the magic of Elvis, WRFD 88. Hear the magic of Elvis on our WRFD 88 from Wednesday, June 26, 1974 until Sunday, June 30th, 1974. A 64-hour spectacular, a pure Presley, an exclusive WRFD 88 presentation. So because I like that June, July 74, I was like, I got to get that from the Columbus.
WRFD 88 on your dial.
And then
it is a pretty cool deal because, that I love stuff like you were saying. I love stuff that is printed when Elvis, because it says right there in the little thing, it talks about the concert, leading up to the concert, we're going to play like 800 hours of Elvis music. I just think that's cool because it was printed while he was on Earth.
Yeah, on the back side, it advertises a bunch of different records of his, but I like that side more. My original plan was to put that in the center and then have pictures from that concert going around it. But to do that, that would be a really big frame. So I just decided to put it up like that. And we put all three up right above each other. So I think that's a good.
Just about everywhere we've ever toured has been our favorite place. We've been, like 100 cities, but Columbus stands out as special because we got in there and we were able to do one of my favorite songs on the sound system there. We had done several times before different songs, but we did Steamroller Blues in there, and that St. John Arena, that was unbelievable. And so if you haven't looked at that video on our YouTube channel, please go back and take a look. Elvis Back on Tour on YouTube and just search out Columbus, and there you'll see it.
Yeah, it's a very unique building that we went to. The seats go really high up. And then the last piece, some of you have seen that before above Dad's head. That is a scarf that we have from Elvis's show in St. Paul, Minnesota in 1977. So that's kind of like our crown jewel of the whole collection so far. So we kind of put that up. And then further down the road, you can't see it now, but there's a spot on the wall that we're going to put another picture up to the right of the scarf. So
we'll run you through the whole, not tonight because we don't want to bore you with it. We just kind of wanted we were excited to show you guys, the people that follow us loyally and faithfully. Just want to show you kind of our new gig. I spent what this basically was a sitting room that we had basically dedicated, I guess, for lack of a better term, to my mom when she passed away 10 years ago. And I had a lot of the furniture. She was a huge Elvis fan, and I had a lot of her furniture. There's a piano, a big white piano that's set here. And I just, I told Michael, I said, look, we've been doing our lives in, that back room for so long. I said, let's, I think Mom would prefer if we, switch over, because we kept that stuff in here for 10 years. And one of the things that we kept, and we'll show you the next live that we do, next diner, is there's a table right in front of me that's in the center of the room. It's a mirror table. And the funny story behind that was she was one of those people that, when we went to Graceland, she was such a huge Elvis fan that she would look around and find different pieces of furniture or like a knickknack or something that he had on the shelf or something. And she'd search it out and try to find it and buy it. And she saw the mirror table downstairs in the TV room. And we came back and back in the 70s. And the next thing I know, now keep in mind, we don't have a lot of money, but somehow she afforded this table. And the next thing I know, we've got, like 6 guys carrying this massive mirror table into the house. And we kept it because it reminds me of my mom, who was a big Elvis fan, but it also reminds me of her love for Elvis, which if it wasn't for her, I probably wouldn't be doing this right now.
Um, Somebody's asking how much the pictures on the wall cost. So I believe that the one of Elvis in Huntsville, the um, Keith Alberson photo, that's a 20 by 28 inch poster, I believe. That was
65.
65, and we bought that directly from him. Uh, I think it's 65 for that, and then I believe if you want it shipped, it's in $5 to get it shipped. So very reasonable, especially because it's a great photo, but he also takes it to a uh, very
Lab.
yeah, a lab that does a very good job with the printing, so it's very high quality. So it's definitely worth the money, and he'll sign it. So that one is signed. It has the show, the city, and date in the bottom, and it's signed by him. So definitely worth the money. Um,
Real quick, I just want to throw in here the other stuff that we've got over here. Over here's like a 3 um, tower
Corner shelf.
corner shelf, whatever you want to call it, big massive shelf. There's one over there, but over here, the bottom half is our all of our Elvis, Elvis books, on tour books, and stuff like that. And then up top, we got all of our live CD, um, all of our CD collection. Then over there, we got a tribute to Ron Strauss and Lisa Marie, the airplane, the airplane, all that stuff over there. We got James Burton over there. Then over there, we've got more books. We got our ticket collection over there. We got my two from back in the 70s. I got a Charlie Hodge autograph and I got a J.D. Sumner autograph over there. And we got Elvis on Tour movie poster over there.
Original.
And then Charlie, our dog, the Elvis dog from the Summer Festival 72, he's up there. He said he wants to remain up high so he can see what's going on. So I told him we'd leave him up there for tonight. But next time we do this, he'll be sitting right here.
He could be back here.
Yeah, we can put him back here.
Yeah, we will say IKEA kind of helped us out here because half of the furniture in here was bought from IKEA, and it's done. It looks really good. So we'll eventually show you guys what it looks like.
Yeah. So that's that.
Somebody asked a great question. So, what do you think about Warner Brothers maybe releasing new footage from Elvis on tour? And that's the way it is. I'm really excited. From the Elvis movie that came out, there was some clips in there of footage I'd never seen of, I think it was Jacksonville and Richmond, but it was only like a couple seconds. But even that was just great to see. And especially for, us, because we like Elvis on tour so much, we're really excited. And hopefully they'll release most of it in a quality way, if that makes sense.
Right.
But I'm really excited. And that's the way it is. I'm excited for that too. I'm not the biggest fan of That's the Way It Is, only because I like on tour so much, but also I think that but a lot of That's the Way It Is footage has already been leaked. I saw somebody mention that a lot of it's already been like leaked years ago. So I don't know how much is left. I'm just interested to see what's still waiting to be released from Elvis on tour.
I've been waiting my whole life for this, and I think somebody like Paul Sweeney that's on here will agree with that. Been waiting so many years for this. I mean, the younger fans, you guys don't know what it was like to have waited as long as us older people. But yeah, it's been a long time coming. And, I've always had this argument. Argument's not a good word because I don't like to argue, but discussion with, we've actually had it on here when we toured Charlotte Coliseum. What was that, last year or something?
I think it was in October.
Last October, a year ago.
Something like that.
So, we went there and we lined up a ton of, well, not a ton, but we lined up some footage that was shot in that building. And we knew it was Charlotte. We've known that was Charlotte for a long time, but we lined up a couple other little things that, we didn't know came from Charlotte. And I was telling Michael, we posted a video and then somebody kind of got on us a little bit and said, there's nothing from Charlotte. That's the only footage from Charlotte. How do you know that, really? I mean, seriously, how do you know that? I mean, yeah, somebody said it was just a handheld that they were, I don't know. What if the guy that was doing the handheld said, hey, I'm going to go out in the crowd tonight and I'm going to film part of the show? I don't know, but that'd be one I'd like to see because they said that was a phenomenal show.
Yeah, and I mean, there's no recording or anything that's been released, only a couple pictures. And when we did our first diner, if you go back and watch our first diner, the topic for that entire video was we detailed Elvis on tour. I went in and I was like, all right, where are some of these locations that people were like, where was that filmed? And so I went and I was like, this scene was shot here, and then when the camera cuts, it goes to this city. And people were saying that there's a clip in there from Albuquerque, which there is when I think it's during the Love Me Tender scene where he's kissing somebody, but also there's a scene where it's only like 3 seconds where he's going out on stage that was also from Albuquerque. So a lot of people didn't realize, that there is clips from cities that they didn't realize that were in that movie that's in that movie. And Charlotte is one of them. And there's only, I think the one scene that I can think of is when they're singing I John and you see the guy setting up for the show and you see a guy pushing a cart up. That was from Charlotte. He was pushing it up the ramp. So if you go back and watch our Charlotte video, you'll see where we line those scenes up.
I've been watching that movie for 50 years, and I'm going to tell you, I had no idea until we started doing this, how chopped up that movie is.
Mhm.
They will make you think that when he's backstage, they're filming something back. I mean, we know this now because we've watched this thing 88 billion times, but um, you'll think I did when I was a kid, he's in a such and such suit and he's backstage and then he walks up and goes up the stairs and he's in that. No, that's something totally different. He might have been in the, uh, can't think of a good example right now, but might have been in the, when we were at Little Rock.
Mhm.
Remember that argument that we went down there and settled because people were arguing that that was in Richmond, and then somebody said that was somewhere else, and then somebody said no, that was absolutely in Little Rock, and then a guy went down there and looked around. He said that room doesn't exist. So we went down there and figured out what had happened. So go take a look at our Little Rock video, and you'll see what we're talking about. They basically, the room that Elvis was actually in Little Rock, they made a room within a room
Mhm.
that's there now. So if you took that room out of there, that was the room that Elvis was in Little Rock. But now, if you went down there not knowing that, um, you would never find that room because it's a room within a room. So it's this investigative type stuff that we do that we're just fanatics about. That's the way we find this stuff out. You just have to be a
Yeah.
detective.
And because when that whole debate was going on, we had been to Richmond in 2018 and went around. And when we went down there, we were like, all right, we're going to start off with because this is the first building that we're going to for this debate. Is there anywhere that this could be, shot? And the guy was like, well, there's no windows in the dressing rooms, which there was in Little Rock.
Right.
And there was no windows at the Richmond Coliseum. And so, a few years later, when we go to Little Rock, we're like, all right, we know what Richmond looks like. And when we went to Little Rock, we had sent the footage to the manager before, and he took us right there and like, this is it. So when we did the video there in Little Rock, he had his information down so well, and this was years in the making that the video of him talking and explaining it was like 9-10 minutes. It took one take. There was no editing in that because we were just a couple years in the making. We were ready to go. We had our information, and so
And that argument had been, we're making it sound like that argument just started. That I've heard people talking about this, years and years and years and years ago about, and I said, we're going to settle this one day because I knew that we've been in Richmond a lot of
mhm,
times, so that's in our home state, so we knew that it was not Richmond
mhm,
because um, the dressing rooms in Richmond are underground.
yeah,
They're in the basement.
yeah.
Half of that building, because it's a sunken bowl, half of that building is underground. On most of these buildings, that's the way it is.
And we that building, Richmond Coliseum, has been fenced off for like 2 years, and the city for the last like 6 years can't decide what they want to do with that building. So like 2 or 3 years ago, they fenced it off, and it's just been sitting. Last update we saw was when I was driving through there over the summer, and it's abandoned. So we got there at the right time. We got there before they closed it down. So That was cool. So it'll be interesting to see when they release the on tour footage if there's what kind of footage there is from Richmond left over. And I'm excited to see
Yeah,
that.
the director liked what we did on that deal down there, and he actually invited us back because he was at the Richmond April 72 show when they were filming, which I missed by, again, that much, but we're not going to go into that. Um, he invited us back and was, if you remember, he was going to play the entire, remember, he said, we'll take our chairs and we'll sit down on the floor and we'll listen to the entire 72 Richmond show.
Mm-hmm.
And things just didn't work out. And what kills me is there's a plaque in there in the lobby. We got a picture. If you look at that Richmond video, you'll see the plaque that's in the lobby dedicated to Elvis. There's one also at the Hampton Coliseum. That thing's just sitting there.
It was dedicated by Virginia, like Virginia Elvis fans. I forget what the name of the fan club was, but it was like Elvis fans of Virginia or something like that. So hopefully if they're still around, that fan club, hopefully they were able to get it out of there, or they will be in the future. If it's torn down, they can get it out. Got the folks from those Elvis girls watching. Thank you guys for joining.
Hey, while we're on the topic of kind of what we're doing right now, I jump around because you can always tell when I do the post because I don't know how to punctuate and stuff like that, and I don't do a lot of video, but and I usually put I and then the parentheses and then J, so it's me. I jump around. Sometimes I do songwriter stuff because I like giving people credit that Elvis was huge on his own, but without these guys putting a pencil on the paper, he's not singing Burning Love.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of jump around. And so I got on this because I'm a jumpsuit fanatic. I said, I've learned so much about these jumpsuits over the years. Let's just start throwing some stuff out there. And so I was just kind of wondering if anybody has seen those, and if you like those, always feel free to, in the comments, tell us. I'm getting a lot of good feedback on the jumpsuit deal. So if you guys like that kind of stuff, then I just, to some people it might seem kind of geeky, like Elvis geek, why are you talking about his clothes? But here's the deal, that he's one of the only entertainers that I know that had his own, it's like we named the guy's clothes. Yeah. I mean, give me another entertainer where you can say they have names for every stage outfit that the guy ever wore. So that's kind of why we do what we do. So hope you guys are enjoying that.
Yeah, if there's anything that you guys would like to see, throw out some ideas. We could definitely try to work that into our content. If there's any sort of like video that you'd like to see, we can see if we can work that out. We're always trying to, start some new stuff. So if you got any ideas, just feel free to let us know. Yeah, same thing with the Mid-South in Memphis. It's just been sitting there. We were there a couple years ago and it was closed, and it was in still relatively good shape. And then we went a couple years later, and the letters on the front of the building had been taken off, and the doors had been chained off, and now you can see mold coming through the bricks.
You can't get in there now.
No, and there was a gentleman that worked at the Liberty Bowl just across the parking lot that had a key to get in the building, and he went to try to open it, and they had put fencing around the doors, and he didn't have a lock for it. So I think there's only a couple people in the city that can open that building, and they haven't decided.
I wouldn't go in there with a hazmat suit on. I'm serious. I would not. You say you would. I'd like to see that. It's dark in there.
I might. If they air it out for a couple months.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, love your jumpsuit posts. Thank you. Well, that's for him. Yeah, Elvis was a fashion icon. Absolutely.
I want to show you guys one thing. We got into one of the things that we wanted to do when we moved into our new room here is we wanted to start putting up some of the live albums, and we got the frames for the albums, and we started doing this. And one of the first ones that I told Michael that I want to get up because it's so representative of what we do, of Elvis on tour and being on the road. We took my one of my favorite album. It's the back of the album. I don't know if you guys can. Is that
right there's fine?
Is that right?
Yeah.
So you guys, the Talking album. Remember Having Fun with Elvis on Stage back in '74. I had the album, and we just thought we'd frame it. I think that's so cool. So just wanted you guys to see that.
I was recently at Graceland where the Aztec. Oh, wait, let me back up. Just hope that all the parties involved, Warner, Sony, EP, all agree on cost, publishing, etc., and release footage that does the '70s Elvis legacy some justice and produce an awesome Elvis on tour. Agreed. Um, I was recently at Graceland where the Aztec sundial suit is displayed, and you can see it very well. Do you think this suit has been altered since Elvis? It was last worn by Elvis. I don't think it has. I mean, you can definitely see the wear on it.
Yeah.
If you look really close, you can definitely see the wear and I guess tarnish a little bit on some of the suit.
And we're going to get into that in my post. I was just going to do like a couple posts, but I'm getting such good feedback on that, and or I should say, we are getting good feedback on that. Uh, I'm going to deep dive into a lot of stuff. We're doing like I can tell you how many times he wore the suit. I can tell you, but we'll start deep diving because he did a lot of fascinating stuff that not everybody. To some people like, oh, I knew that, I knew that. Well, that's fine, but there's a lot of people that don't. The younger fans, I want to kind of appeal to them too, because like the belt, that's the RCA belt on the blue swirl suit. But there were other, just about every suit the man had, he had an alternate belt. And then he would, the other thing we'll start talking about is how he would interchange.
Mm-hmm.
He had belts that he would, grab off another suit and put with that. And so,
and I think with the suits, I was working on a upcoming video that we're going to be releasing. And for one of his shows at that building in '76, he wore I think it was the white or blue Egyptian bird. And I was like, he wore that a lot in '76. Let me look up the facts. And in '76, 3 tours back to back, every single show, he either wore the white Egyptian bird or the blue Egyptian bird. So for those 3 tours, every single show back to back, that was the only suit that he wore. So that was used a lot in '76. And that was just a fun fact I had realized. But he really liked that suit, as you can tell.
And just so you guys know, and we say this, I think, just about every live we do, we are very knowledgeable in what we do. We know our stuff, but I'll be the first to tell you, and he'll back me right up on this. We don't claim to be know-it-alls, and I say this every time because I never want us to come across as pompous or check with us before and then we'll let you know, and once we let you know, you don't need to go any further. That's ridiculous, because this guy is so deep, and so there's so much information. And will you get some of it wrong? If you do this long enough, you'll get something wrong. I'm telling you, you will post a picture from a wrong city, and they'll let you know. But we do our research, and we try to do the best job that we can. And so I just wanted to kind of always make it a point to say that just about every time. It's just that we're going to give you the best information that we can, and kind of send you on your way with what we know, and go from there.
So someone was asking about the belts. The belts are displayed. It will depend on the suit with what belt is displayed with it. There could be a belt that Elvis wore with that suit one time, but the one displayed at Graceland is a different belt. So it just depends on the suit that is displayed. Has there ever been comments on why the sundial suit was worn so often in '77? I think the common perception, if that's the right way to say that, I think the common thought is that with him gaining weight, I think that suit just, I guess, was more comfortable for him. I guess it fit better. I did hear in an interview with Bill Ballou, Elvis's fashion designer, that had he lived past '77, he was going to start going back towards the two-piece suits that he wore like in April and May of '75 with like the shoulder ornaments. He was going to have Elvis start going back to that, especially with the talk that once Elvis had finished that September tour in '77, he was going to take, and this is what I've heard from an interview, he was going to take some time off, go to Hawaii, lose the weight, get healthier and all that, and then he was going to go back to those two-piece suits. So I think the reason that he wore the sundial so much was because it fit him better, it was more comfortable, and then there was that suit that he was going to wear at the beginning on the August 16th. The I forget what they were going to call that suit. Um,
I don't think that was ever, to my knowledge, I don't think that suit was ever named. You talked about the one that had just been made for the one
yeah,
for going on
it
tour.
might have.
We didn't have a name for it because
Yeah.
nobody ever saw it.
So I mean, you could assume, even though we don't do that a lot on here, you could assume that he would have worn the sundial probably more, that and the Arabian suit. He probably would have worn that for most of that tour had he lived. But once he would have, you know, lost the weight and all that, he would have probably gone back to the two-piece suits.
It's a fascinating subject for me because, as any of the older fans will tell the younger fans, is that when we were kids growing up and you were an Elvis fan, you could only see what the picture, if the picture was taken from far away of Elvis on stage, like for instance that one. If you looked at that in a magazine, okay, you can tell it's a kind of a swirl, like a rainbow type deal, but you have no idea what's on that belt. And I remember looking at pictures when I was a kid and I'm going, wonder what's on that belt. It's some kind of design. Well, now because they're on display, you know what's on that. And you got different guys out there that do that do the just photograph the suits and the close-ups and stuff like that, like Lawrence, that does
Elvis jumpsuit heaven.
Yeah, Elvis jumpsuit heaven. Lawrence, if you're a fanatic about the suits, go and look at his work. We give him a shout out every time we're on here because that guy does work photography wise that is off the charts. How he gets through that glass without the reflection. But what I'm saying is that now that you have people like that and you can go and see the suits, you can photograph them, and then you got all this, they're digitally remastered and all this, so you can see all that. It's just a fascinating subject, and we've researched it for so long. And we have little tidbits, like when we talked to Dick Grobe, how they talked about, like we used to get asked all the time, how did they clean them? Did they go to the cleaners? They absolutely. We have documentation from when they were in Duluth on tour in 76. We actually went, and it's still there. We went to the dry cleaner where his jumpsuit was taken. And I remember asking Dick Grobe, I said, what's that like? When the guy shows up at the, at the dry cleaner, in Duluth and says, hey, would you mind running this through the machine? Dry clean, which I still don't know what dry clean. What does that mean? What dry clean? You need to get that wet to clean it, but I don't know how.
We talked to some of the ladies that work for B&K. They do the jumpsuit remakes, and they were down there at Elvis Week, and we talked to them about that. And I forget what they said the process was, because what they make the jumpsuits with is different than what Elvis used. It was gabardine, but he used wool. That's right. What his suits were made of. So I think it was a different process. But they said some of the suits you had to clean it a different way because, like the studs, some of them were painted, not stones.
Right.
So every suit was different on how it had to be cleaned. So I don't know what the process, like, for example, the peacock suit or the blue swirl, it was embroidered. It wasn't all stones like the ones from 72. So every suit was different on how it had to be cleaned.
And that thing glitters. I just did a post not too long ago where I just moved the camera just a little bit. I wasn't drinking or anything, but I just moved it a little bit, and you could just see that it just popped like all the, and I'm thinking, man, could you imagine seeing that man on stage with that?
And I think at least the one that had been on display at Graceland, I think the one that sparkled the most was the chief suit behind me. That one.
That thing's crazy.
Yeah. And on a side note, I really like the way that the jumpsuits are displayed at Graceland. To an extent, I like how they're kind of all in one place, and you can just look around and just see jumpsuits. And a lot of people agree with me on this, where you got the Spanish flower suits that are all the way up at the top on the top row, and those are some of the most, if not the most detailed suits that he wore. And you can't see them. You can't get close up to take pictures.
Yeah, it'd be nice if they had like a staircase that went up and kind of like built a kind of like a what do you want to call it, like a walkway within there. Then you could go up to the next level, walk around like you do on the bottom, then go up to the next level. You get my point. So
Many jumpsuits in the new display have gone through restoration. I believe that because some of those are in really good shape.
Bobby asked, was every suit named? Yeah, we had over the years, the fans have we've named every one of them
And
things.
that's because if you go to Graceland and go through the jumpsuits, there's some that he wore in 69 and 70 where it's a very plain suit. I don't know what those suits would have been named because there were so many in the first year or two that he wore in Vegas that were just so plain
Mhm.
that, I don't know what the names are of them. We got Heather here. Hey, Heather, thanks for joining. It was good to see you down at Elvis Week, especially all the other folks that we saw down there. It was great seeing you guys. We met a lot of nice people.
Hey, let's give Heather a shout out while she's on here. She don't pay us to do this, but she's a good friend of ours, and you guys know how I am with the songwriters and all that. Uh, go on what's that thing, Spotify that we use, and go on Spotify and just type in Heather Lomax and just take a listen to her voice. She's got a very unique voice and a very unique sound, and she's just a good friend of ours. Has always been super super kind to us, and I just thought that'd be a good thing to do.
Yeah. Um, yeah, folks from Always, I was saying they have the real estate to have them all out on ground level. I'm, yeah, they definitely do. I'm taking a guess that the reason they did that was for like, to get like a cool photograph. Because when you see people down there at Graceland, they always go into like the corner with all the jumpsuits behind them and take a picture. That's probably what that was for. I think it was for like the wow factor. But I don't even know if I'm sure that there's jumpsuits that they still have that haven't been put out on display, and there's also ones that are
Private hands.
private hands, and there's definitely ones that they own that they're, letting other places around the world not rent them, but borrow them for their
Mhm.
displays. So it'd be nice to see them all in one spot at ground level. So yeah, true. It's a great photo op. That's exactly what it is. So, maybe they'll rotate them out or maybe they might change it, but I'm taking a guess that they're going to be like that for a while.
So we beat this dog to death. So let's talk about before we get off the jumpsuit thing. Stay with me on my upcoming post. I was like I say, I was only going to do a few just to bring out a few big ones, but I think I'm going to stay with this for quite a while and just kind of run through some different facts. Like somebody was asking me the other day, were they ever washed? I cleared that up. Yeah, they were washed on the road while they were on tour. Somebody like a Dick Grove or somebody like that would, or somebody, man, not Dick Grove, but somebody would take them down to the dry cleaner and have them cleaned, and then we can get into how much they weighed. We sent a post out the other day about how the capes were attached under the collar, stuff like that. So we'll get into some, the different belts that were worn with different suits and the different names. And some of the suits have, it's up to you. But most of them have a very specific name, but some of them have, like I've seen rainbow, blue swirl, whatever for this one. So
Mm-hmm.
I go with the blue swirl. So,
Yeah.
all right, what do we got next?
Jumpsuit display is nice, and I think in 1982 some of the suits were on a rolling clothes rack, totally in the open.
Yeah, I remember that.
I've seen photos of that from how they've kind of changed their displays throughout the years, and if I'm not mistaken, because it's been so long for me, I think the Aloha suit used to be in a completely different building
Mhm.
from the complex,
It did.
like over by the old shopping strip. I think now they have it like fenced off, and it's just an empty, abandoned little strip there, but it was in like a complete, like you had to leave the main complex and walk around and just to see the Aloha suit. So it's nice that they have it right there in the middle with everything around it.
There's actually a picture, it's around here somewhere. One of my favorite pictures is Elvis on stage with the dry cleaner with the dry cleaner tag on it.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody missed that one, but
Yeah.
that's a cool picture.
Yeah, there's a jumpsuit collection currently on display in London, and I think there's one in Australia. So there's some jumpsuits that are all over the place around the world. So I I doubt that all the jumpsuits at Graceland own will be together in one room at some point because I think they're always going to be rotating them out. But you can definitely bet for sure that they're always going to keep the Aloha and the Sundial suit in their possession. They're not going to let that one go.
While we're talking, well, we'll change subjects. We've got on a project that we've been working on for quite a while, that we're going to release in December of this year. You know what I'm talking about, right? You better.
I will in a minute.
Don't mention it. Don't say the name. But yeah, we've been working on this project that will be appropriate for us to release in December of this year. So we're gonna surprise you guys with something pretty cool just after Christmas coming up, and I think we're going to go back and do some. We still got what about 10 cities left, and then that'll knock us out. We're done, but we want to go back. There's a few that we've been doing this for a long, long time, a lot longer than you know that we've been filming it and releasing the videos. Michael's been doing this with me since he was a baby. I was doing it long before that. Um, but there's some that we did where we were doing it before we really started getting into the heavy filming and going backstage and stuff like that. So we're going to go back to some, we've actually done that several times
Yeah.
to some other buildings, Charlotte being one,
Roanoke,
Roanoke. But
Ohio.
there's a couple that we need to go back and get into. So look for that this coming year. We got that big project that we're working on for December. We got that coming out. We're going to surprise you guys with that. We're going to get back and do the George Hill interview. You guys will be fascinated by that, especially if you're into photography. You're already into Elvis, but if you're into photography as well, you'll be fascinated by that because he talks about, how he did what he did, how he got into so many shows, 65 to be exact. So, yeah, we've been to Madison Square Garden. That's a different deal there. That you can't at Madison Square Garden. You cannot. I set up all of our tours. I got a way that I do it that gets us in there. Sometimes we have to sign waivers, some heavy duty insurance waivers and things like that. But Madison Square Garden, you're just not getting in that.
They
building.
they have like public tours that they do throughout the day, but because it's such a popular and it's always operational. It's just really hard to do what we're doing with that.
Well, it's in New York City too.
Yeah.
They're not just going to let people wander through there like we do. But some of the buildings, we go into the,
Kalamazoo.
once I set it up, they'll show us around, and then because they trust us, and we kind of get to do whatever we want.
Yeah, and so going off what he was saying, and somebody was asking the same thing. We've done everything. If you go to like Phoenix, Denver, we've done everything east of that. We've at least been to that city. Some of them were a good handful of them we've visited before we were doing this, so there's not a lot of content that we could put out to make a video. Like Denver, we only were there for a short time and we only took a couple photos and videos, so it's not a lot for us to put out. But with buildings that we've never visited, we still have the entire Northwest and California, and then Honolulu. So those are trips that we're going to have to take. And like he said, we're going to go back to some of these buildings. We just have to figure out where and when. Have you been to many of the small venues he mainly did in Arkansas, Louisiana, Texas? We've been to a handful of the 50s venues. With that, we don't selectively go out of our way to go to that building. It's only a matter of if we're going to a city like, Kansas City or Oklahoma City, where there's a building that he performed at in the 70s, and then the building that he performed at in the 50s is still there, if not the same building. Sometimes the building he performed at in the 70s is the same where he performed in the 50s. So we don't go out of our way unless it's in the same city, it's still there, or it's on the way between two cities. Like when we were in Texas, we would be driving from, city to city, and there was just a whole lot of nothing. And we look up on the map and he's like, oh, he performed at this little 1,500 seat auditorium in 54. And we'd go there, and that's just how it was. So Arkansas, I don't think we went to a lot of 50s. Louisiana, we went to a couple, and then Texas, we went to, we also been to Richmond, where he performed at the Moss Theater, and a lot of other 50s all around the country, but we've never selectively gone out of our way to go to a 50s. It's only if it's kind of like on the way.
I was telling a friend of mine the other day, it amazes me because, like you guys have heard me say so many times on here, and I won't go through this whole thing again, but um, when I did this with my mom years ago, back in the 70s, Elvis was still alive, and I was going into these buildings, and I would get to meet people that held a door for him or saw him, was taking room service up or something like that, and caught a glimpse of him and things like that. You don't see any of that anymore, but I was I was looking at going through OneDrive the other day because that's where I store all of our when we're on tour doing our venues and stuff like that. And I just sat there and scrolled and scrolled and scrolled and scrolled, and it kept going. And I said, We've been." Now I'm just talking about the '70s. It's like we've been to, because obviously I've been to some of the buildings that he hasn't because I saw him back in the '70s that has since now been torn down. Chicago Stadium being one. I've seen that building. Um, it just amazes me when I sit here and go, as a kid, I remember thinking, man, wonder what it was like for Elvis to be in all these different cities. And it, I'm looking through OneDrive and I'm going, we actually are close to pulling this off where I can actually say I've been in every city that man was in. And I think it's so cool. And so many memories, I think of like Duluth. There's so many great memories in Duluth and in Texas when we did our Texas trip. God, I didn't realize. I mean, I knew Texas was a big state, man, but and we talk about this all the time. How Texas, um, you can thank the state of Texas for being a huge part of Elvis's success and putting Elvis on the map because that was his wheelhouse in the '50s. I mean, he was all over that state, and we've been to every one of the '70s venues in Texas, and that was really cool to do
Mhm.
that.
Phoenix is still open. Yep, we did a video on that
Mhm.
we released that looks like a year ago. Feels like yesterday I released that, but that's on our channel if you want to check that out. That was one of the that was one of the venues that we had been to before we were doing that. So there's not a ton of content, but there's still enough photos and videos in there for a good video. So be sure to check that out. What venue have you been inside that is most untouched as it was when he performed? We get asked that a lot. Probably that I can think off the top of my head is Rapid City, and that was when we went there. I think they've kind of done a little bit of renovation in there, so
Yeah.
I don't know what it is looks like now. But when we went, Rapid City, Little Rock,
Mhm.
um, there's a Kansas City Memorial Auditorium. That one was pretty unchanged. Um, so there's a good handful that have done little changes to their building since Elvis performed there, but then there's also a good handful that have just completely gutted the building. It's
Kemper Arena.
Kemper Arena. It just doesn't even look the
Check
same.
out the video on that. They took that was a huge building. I mean, 18,000, I believe.
Yeah.
And I mean, that is a huge when you stand inside this thing, it's like you're in a cavern. But what they did is they took the ground floor and they made a workout area for basketball, like training and stuff like that. And then what they did is they suspended an actual floor. They made it a two-story building, but the building is suspended in midair by these cables. It's the strangest thing I've ever seen. But um, so what that does is it creates a situation where there's no columns or anything
Mhm.
anywhere in that building, and so they have open basketball courts upstairs and then open basketball courts. And people say, well, did that really bug you being the historian? I'm a purist in this kind of stuff. Like people that love baseball, they love, like, don't ever tear down, Wrigley, don't ever
Mhm.
tear down Fenway. And I'm the same way with these buildings. You'll notice when I do a post, there's people that call them by the name that they are today. I refuse to do it. He gets on me all the time. He says, not called that anymore. And I go, well, it was called that when he was here. And so, uh, but yeah, I like calling them by the names that they were. So I hate it when they tear them down, but like uh, in the idea of Kemper Arena, they didn't tear it down. So let's be glad that the building is still there. Outside, it looks exactly like it did, but inside's changed. But they didn't tear it down. They repurposed it, which is, I guess, 50% good, right?
Yeah. Hey, Paul, thank you for the kind comment. Wish you all the best. We gotta do an interview with you. We missed you during Elvis week, so definitely gotta do an interview with you. And for those of you who don't know, Paul Sweeney did a book of Elvis in
In Canada.
Canada, and so that was a really good book, and we thank him for giving us a copy. It was a really good book. We really enjoyed it.
Some of the greatest pictures from the 50s performances that I've ever seen, and just such a nice person as well. So we've met so many. You've heard me say this before out there when we go out on the road and the people that get us in these buildings and stuff like that. Some of the nicest people literally that we've ever met, and we never have bad luck with it. I guess it's how you treat people and how you talk to people. It goes a long way. So
somebody was asking, did you ever get into Kiel Auditorium in St. Louis before it was turned down? I have not. I don't know if you saw it.
Saw it.
You saw it. That was before I was born, right?
Yeah.
So 20 plus years ago, he saw it, but never got in. Yeah.
Those municipal buildings were kind of weird in the sense that they were in that transition period where when Elvis came back on the road, some of these buildings had not been built yet, like Kemper Arena in Kansas City. So what he did is he had to go into the municipal auditorium that was built back in the, 29 or something like that.
A lot of the municipals were built in the 20s.
Yeah, it was Art Deco. It was a government project to kind of make a building for each city. So he was going into these municipal buildings, and the ones off the top of my head, Kansas City, St. Louis, Cleveland,
Oklahoma.
Yeah, they all had like that municipal building that he would roll through in the 70s. But then just like the next time through, so by like 74, most of that had been removed, and he's now starting to go to the newer buildings that exist now that are now being torn down.
Yeah, we got San Diego, the Forum, Portland, Eugene. Those are all still open. Do you have a piece of memorabilia from each venue that you've been to? We do not have one from every venue or from every building, but we do have a couple. I think two of the most notable that we have is Kemper Arena, as he was talking. We 2 years ago, it was the end of October 2 years ago, we had gone to Kansas City that summer before, and they said that they'd give us a rack of seats. And we were like, well, we flew, so we can't take them home with us. And so we ended up working it out with the building that we left from here, and we just drove, I think it was like 15 hours to Kansas City.
Hold your thoughts and comments. Okay. I know people are going to go, you're weird.
Drove to Kansas City, got the seats, and then came back with a rack of seats from Kemper Arena. And they were obviously the original ones that were there when he performed there. And I think we also stopped in Louisville, Kentucky on the way home. So
we try to prize some stuff. I mean, we try to ask for stuff, like whenever we go. But when we went to Roanoke, I don't know if they can they can see maybe this. These are the floor seats when Elvis performed in Roanoke.
It says RCC on the back, Roanoke Civic Center. It's called something different now. It's Berglund Center.
Berglund Center.
Yeah, when we went to Roanoke, we were going down there just to do our content, our videos and photos that we had set up with the building. And unknown to us at the time, and just perfect timing, they're like, we have all the racks. We have racks out in the loading dock with all the original floor seats, and they're getting ready to go to dump later this week. So he said, you can take as many as you want. And we went out in the loading dock, and there was hundreds and hundreds of original seats. And he said, you can take as many as you want. So we got a handful of them.
So he wants to take like 20. And I said, what are we going to do with
Wouldn't
20?
you guys take a truckload of seats with you, even if you didn't need them?
No, because the people that follow us are sensible, normal-minded people. And nobody is going to say, I would take a truckload. What are you going to do with a truckload?
Okay, you're saying sensible people, but we drove 15 hours each way to pick up 3 seats.
That was sensible. Talk about sensible. That's one of the most sensible things that we've done.
All right. I want to see people in the comments back me up on that. How many seats would would you have taken? There were hundreds and hundreds of seats. How many
Come
would you
on.
have taken?
Come on, people. Let's be normal about this, okay? Just yeah,
Some,
see, Mike, just want one.
yeah. Okay. So we got
I like you, Mike.
one person on. Wow. Okay. I thought the Michaels could stick together on that, but whatever. Um,
But that was a fun trip. You talk about memories there, man. Going, I look back on that. I'll tell you, we actually we looked into having the those seats shipped, and I went to what I
well, that
go
was
to
also the case with
FedEx or UPS or something like that.
yeah, but that I think the big time that we were trying to figure that out was when we were in Tulsa. That's when we were trying to get those.
Yeah, it's another store. But the Kansas City one, that was going to be. I got the measurements and everything, and I went to what, like FedEx?
You
Was
went
it
to all
FedEx?
the
I
shipping
went to all
places.
the places, and it was like $600. I said for $600 we can drive out there,
That's exactly
and
what we
that's
did.
exactly what we did. And we had the seats, and it was great memories going out there.
Yeah, we got some good content going out. I think we stopped in Charleston, West Virginia, and then Louisville on the way back. That was at Louisville. That was a nice trip.
And just so you know, so you can learn a little bit about us. Not that you want to, but we'll tell you. Um, we're the type of people that when we go on the road, we have always, we will stay in the hotel because we have the tour sheet, so we know where he stayed. And if the hotel is still there, we'll stay at that hotel. If we can get on the floor, we'll stay on that floor.
Mhm.
And because then we've got the sheets that shows, where where the guy stayed, so we know what rooms all the different guys were in. And sometimes, like when we were in Binghamton, we actually stayed in the suite that Elvis used when he was on tour there in '77. That was really odd. That whole Binghamton deal. That there was just something really. People ask us all the time, "Do you feel his presence?" And we've talked about this. We don't believe in ghosts, and it's not like stuff's moving across the floor in the room, but you do feel. I'm not going to sit here and say every building we've ever gone into do we feel his presence and stuff like that, but I do believe in energy. I believe that people, when they pass, they leave energy behind. I fully believe that about my mom. I can still sense her on a lot of occasions today. But when we go in these buildings, Little Rock being one, when we were in that little room
Mhm.
where it's Elvis on tour,
Mhm.
and they're filming him, warming up his voice before he goes on, we stood right there,
Mhm.
and man, you just feel like it's almost like a electrical pulses, shooting through the room or something. I don't know, but
Yeah.
yeah.
Somebody was saying, okay, Doug, you and I here. He said he would have taken a U-Haul and filled it up.
Oh, okay.
Um, somebody was asking if we've spent time in Ohio. Yeah, we actually did an Ohio trip a year and a half or 2 years ago. We went to Columbus, Dayton, and we've been to Cleveland. We only
Cincinnati.
Cincinnati, and I think because Cincinnati was torn down.
No,
No,
Cincinnati's still there. Riverfront.
but what was the other one that was torn down in Ohio?
Oh, the Gardens, Cincinnati Gardens.
Yeah, that we were there before it was torn down.
Yeah.
So yeah, we have been to a lot of those places. Cleveland, no, Dayton and Columbus are two videos that we have out. The Columbus one we were talking about earlier, so be sure to check both of those out. Have you been to Champaign and Carbondale in Illinois? And if so,
Yep.
were they the small 7,000 seat arenas that Elvis seemed to play?
Yep.
One of them, I forget which one it was, looked like a UFO, looked like a flying saucer, but it was it seemed small on the outside, but it was kind of bigger on the inside.
Those two buildings, I get them.
Champagne, I think, is the one that looked like a
UFO.
UFO. I
Yeah,
think.
because it's silver, and we were there right when the sun was at an angle where you couldn't literally. And if you've been there, you know what we're talking about. You can't look at the building because it's silver. Whoever came up with the idea to do that, I don't know.
Yeah,
But
Champagne is the one that looks like a flying
yeah,
saucer.
look it up. So yeah, and keep in mind, we get asked this all the time. Why did he play again? We've literally gone over this 1,000 times. back then, colleges were a great place to play because some cities at that time didn't have a big indoor arena that could, hold the people that he needed to play in front of. So if he was going into that city, he had to play the building that was available. And sometimes it was a college arena.
And going off that, I saw a couple months ago, I did some research and I actually found out a fun fact that the tour that Elvis was going to go on when he died, that August 77 tour, that tour would have had a handful of buildings that were 17, 18, 19,000 plus, like, but he had never been there, like, Rupp Arena in Lexington. He had never been there, but had he had gone there, I think it was 20,000 seats. But it also would have been the smallest building he had been in, Utica, at Utica Memorial Auditorium. That would have been his smallest venue, smaller than I think West Palm Beach, which was his smallest that he went to. But I kind of find it interesting that it would have been the smallest building, but then he would have also had Nassau, Rupp Arena in Lexington. He would have gone back to Roanoke and the Mid South. He would have finished on August 28th, 77 at the Mid South. So he would have had that wide range of uh, concert goers.
Mike was asking about Syracuse. Yeah, Mike, we did a whole, years ago, we did a whole, you can go on Elvis Back on Tour on YouTube and look at all of our videos, please, if you'd like. But when we did the New York thing, it was spring break in school, I think, and for you.
Mm-hmm.
And we just jumped in the car and we knocked out every New York city that he performed in, with the exception of New York City. We did
Uniondale. Or
well, we had been to Uniondale.
We had been there.
To there.
It was
before.
More upstate.
Yeah, it was, and that was absolutely because it was freezing cold, right? And we saw Niagara Falls and icicles hanging off of it. So a lot of the stuff we do, there's so many good memories attached because of Elvis. Because to be honest, I don't know that I would ever have the need to go to Buffalo. But because of Elvis, we went to Buffalo, and that was one of the coolest trips. The architecture in Buffalo is incredible. I would have never have known that. And I also didn't know that's where Wings were created. Yeah. And we went to the place where Wings were created. I didn't know that either. So going back to what I was talking about earlier, we are the type of people that when we go into a city, we eat. I forgot to finish my point on that. We eat at the local restaurants that people that live in those cities. Like, what was the place where we went to Spangles when we went to Wichita? Mm-hmm. We try to go to the local fair and try to eat where the local people eat and enjoy what they like. And we'll always ask, hey, where do you like to go? And they'll say, oh, you got to go to Spangles. And so we went there, and that was cool. So yeah, Syracuse, we did that when we went to Buffalo and Binghamton, Rochester.
We went to Niagara Falls. That one, the building there is still there, but it's a casino now. So at that time, I couldn't go in. So he just went and got a couple pictures, but he said that the inside is completely changed and it didn't look anything.
You can see a little bit of the walls that are behind where the stage would have been. The walls are the same. I've got some pictures of that somewhere in here. And Syracuse was virtually the same. What I loved about Rochester and what was the other hockey game? We go to a lot of hockey games.
You mean outside of New York, or just hockey that we saw? Because I think we only went to Rochester.
Well, we went to a hockey game in Macon too, right?
Yeah. So, and we missed Shreveport because they were out of season. But
the Mud Bugs,
that was a good video too. So
love the Mud Bugs. Yeah, go back and again. We're doing kind of little mini commercials for our videos, but go back and take a look at our Shreveport video where we interviewed Estelle from the Sweet Inspiration. She even invited us into her home. And that was, man, you talking about that was emotional time and just a phenomenal memory that I'll never forget.
Yeah. And when, if you guys are somewhat new to the channel, and even if you're longtime watchers of the channel, be sure when this ends, or you can do it now, go ahead and go into our channel and just click videos and just scroll through all the way to the first video, because there could be a city that you didn't know we'd been to. And you can watch those videos. Something like we did a couple years ago when we went to Texas. there was a lot of cities that it was such a small. I wouldn't say it was a small venue. There just wasn't a lot of Elvis material there to begin with. So like Odessa, there was more content of him leaving his hotel than there was of the actual show. So there wasn't a lot that we could do in the building. So we did a video with 4 cities in one. So you got Odessa, El Paso. No, El Paso is its own one. Um, Abilene, Fort Worth,
Amarillo.
Amarillo. In one video, you got 4 cities in one video. So with that being said, just go ahead and look at all of our videos, and there might be a city that you didn't know we went to that you can check out.
By the time we got done traveling through Texas, man, we were seeing spots. That was like, I think we logged 1,600 miles on that trip because we did like a fish hook. We started in Dallas, right?
Dallas, and then drove up
And came down
west,
Albuquerque, and then came down to El Paso,
and then flew to Houston.
flew to Houston, and
Houston was we don't talk about Houston.
that was crazy.
Just want to go back because I need to make this known. People are siding with me. You got people saying that they would have taken as many as they could. Someone said they would have taken a dozen. So
I don't see that.
yeah, because you skipped over it because you went to the
I'm
next.
looking at the same thing you look at.
Yeah, but it was a while ago. You skipped over it.
All right. I'm telling you, most people would say, why don't be a stingy about it. Just go and get a couple, which we did. The rack that we have of the Kemper Arena chairs, that we had to take it because they're bolted together. What we're going to do?
Yeah, shout out to the Kemper for doing that, because that was a process. Because the way that a lot of these seats now are put in is you get like 20 or 30 seats, and they're one unit that they drill in. They're not individual seats. So when we went there, they had to pretty much like break a unit apart to let us have a couple seats. So shout out to Kemper and Ronak for helping us with the seats.
Hey, a little fun fact about this is not a whole lot to do about Elvis, but I'll just give you a little funny story about that. So we get this all set up. I'm on the phone with the guy. I'd been talking to the guy. What was that guy's name that told us to come back and get the seat? He'd hook us all up. And
Woody.
Oh, Woody. So I was on the phone with Woody. God bless Woody. And I said, all right, here's what we're doing. Believe it or not. He said, you guys are actually going to drive. I said, we're Elvis fanatics. We're going to come out there because we want to try to get a piece of Elvis history any chance we can get. So we're coming to Kansas City. A lot of this too is so I can spend time with him. So, because as your kids get older, they get farther and farther from you, and then one day they're gone, and you're going to wish, So I didn't mind driving to Kansas City because I had him hostage in the car for like 16 hours. But anyway, I'm on the phone with Woody. Don't worry about it. It's all set up. I'll see you out here. What day? What did we go out like it was on a Friday or something like that?
Yeah, that sounds right.
So he said, all right. And I said, now, Woody, make sure you have the seats ready to go because we're driving 1,600 miles. We're going to come, no, that's
16 hours.
16 hours. So I said, we're driving 16 hours. We're going to load the seats up, and then we're going to start heading back because I had to get back. And so he said, man, no problem. Have it all worked out. So what do you think happened? So we drive 16 hours. We get there at what did we leave at like 2:00 in the morning or something like that?
Yeah, and we drove all the way, and we stayed the night in Kansas City, and then that morning picked it up.
That's exactly right. So we drive to Kemper Arena, and I go into the main thing, and I asked the lady, I think it was a guy. I said, hey, Woody knows us, and I said, we're here to pick up these seats that he's holding for us. And he said, Woody's not here today. And I said, well, then you know about the seats that we're coming to get? He said, I don't know a thing about what you're talking about. Well, you can only imagine how nervous I was. I mean, I was like 5 shades of green, and what are we going to do now? And so I said, can you call Woody? He said, nope, because I don't know how to get a hold of him. And I said, is there anybody in this building that you can? So anyway, long story short, he called up this lady. She came down. She walked through the door. She said, I got your seats for you. I was like, oh my God. So we went up, and the guy came down, the guy that works there doing the maintenance and stuff like that. He brought his drill down and went up there and hooked us up. But anyway, funny little story.
Yeah, but because The way that it's set up is they split the building in half. If you watch our Kansas City video, I think it's part two. Part one is the municipal, part two is the Kemper. The building was split in half. And when they cut the building in half, they had to take out a bunch of seats. Well, they didn't want to get new seats. So what they did was when they took out the rows to cut the building in half, they use those seats for parts. So if a seat breaks or something, they just go up in their storage, which is at the very, very top of that building, and they just will get the part that they need to fix it. And so we went all the way to the top, and it was way up there. And they helped us get the seats, and we had to walk them down to the main floor and walk them out to the car. But when we were up there, it's hard. It was hard to really picture in your head because of the building. The floor was closer to you, but they were saying that if you were up on that top row of the building when Elvis performed there, he was like that big on stage because it was so high up that he would have been really small. But he still would have been able to see Elvis. But again, shout out to Kemper and Roanoke for helping us get seats.
Speaking of local fare, we got to eat ribs in Kansas City. I'm a rib fanatic, and I got to eat ribs in Kansas City. That was incredible.
Hmm.
Hey, thanks to everybody that's saying the nice things about our new. We'll next time we do this, we're not completely done yet, but we'll spin the camera around and we'll show you like a lot of the stuff that's in our collection. Charlie, our Elvis dog from 72 Summer Festival, he's over there watching. Nippers over there and some other stuff. But thank you for saying it. We were going to go with like a wall with like a big mural on the back that made it look like bookcases to make us look like we're really smart and rich. But we went with honesty, and we just went with who we are. We're just two regular guys, father and son team, and we just went with our guy. We just put pictures of our guy up. So just being who we are.
Somebody was saying, I wonder if there were people that followed Elvis around from show to show. There's definitely people that did that. George Hill was one of the people that did that. I think he went to 56 shows. 65 shows. He went to the Houston shows in February of 1970, and then went to, I forget what his last show that he went to. It was
Mobile 77.
I believe that was the last show he went to. But within that time, he went to 65 shows, and I believe he took, don't quote me on this, but I believe he said he took about 6,000 or 7,000 photos. I'm not sure if he knows the exact number because he took so many, but it's in the thousands.
Well, remember when we interviewed him, he did the math on it.
Yeah.
Remember he sat there and said, I would take X number of rolls. This is what per show. This is what my camera held. I went to 65 shows. He did the math, and he said, I'm sitting at about 7,000 photos in my collection, which is just mind-boggling.
Yeah, it was a rough guesstimate based off how many he would have taken per show. Keith Alverson was definitely one too. He took a lot of pictures and went to a lot of shows. And it's funny because I believe when we were down there, they said that Keith and George didn't know each other at the time, and they ended up going to a lot of the same shows, taking photos from different angles, Huntsville being one of them. So a lot of those Huntsville shows are photographed by both of them.
Wasn't the story from the Huntsville show where Keith got a handshake? You see him getting a handshake, and then there's also a photo of George Hill getting a handshake in the same. So Elvis was shaking hands with the photographers.
Yep. So there's a photo of Elvis right when he walks out. I think it was that show behind us, right when he walks out on stage. Keith was the first hand that he shook, and there's footage of it. And then later in that show, George got to shake his hand, and there's a photo of that that handshake out there. So, and there's also he was telling us that his grandson George Hill's grandson found footage of, I believe it was Huntsville, when Elvis was getting on his plane. George was there by the steps of the plane, and he raised his hand, and you can see Elvis shaking George's hand. And he's like, you can only see my arm, but he said, I know that was me. And so I went on there and I found it on YouTube that it was like a news station that was there when Elvis was getting on his plane, and you can see him shake George. George said he got to shake Elvis's hand 3 or 4 times. One of them was at the Astrodome in '70, the plane in Huntsville, and then on stage, and maybe one other time. But one thing that he told me that I thought was really cool, when we were down there, one thing I thought was really cool was he was able to take photos of Elvis on stage, get them printed, and then go to the show the next night and give it to somebody that worked for Elvis, and then they got Elvis to sign the photos, and they gave them back to George Hill. So he has a handful of photos in his possession that he took of Elvis, got them printed, got them signed the next night, and he's got them in his collection. So that was really cool. Not a lot of people can say that.
All right.
Yeah, there is video of Keith shaking Elvis's hand. So yeah, that's if you just look up Elvis in Huntsville '75, you'll see him walk out, and Keith Alverson's hand is the first that he shakes. So that's really cool. And then we got to shake their hands. So that's cool.
Elvis was surrounded by, we've talked about this before, as we wind down. Elvis was surrounded by so many incredible people. Just as we meet them today, in their later years, you can only imagine what it was like in those years. When they were young, and Elvis was young, and just right in the prime of their life, and just some of the people that come to mind is like Glenn Harden. What a cool guy he is, and you just think, man, I wonder what it was like to be in that circle, because he just, and we talk about like Ron Strauss, his pilot, the people that are kind of off in the wings, if you will. Ron Strauss wasn't a guy that was out there every night like a bodyguard or a musician, but he was part of again, we talk about this every time we do one of these, he was part of the fabric that make up that great quilt known as Elvis. And it's just pretty cool when you get to meet these people and you see how genuine and nice. I mean, I was blown away by Mr. Strauss. He was just one of the nicest people that we've ever met. It's just so welcoming, and what can I do for you guys? And
Yeah.
nice.
So as we start to kind of wind down, feel free to ask any questions that you may have in the comments. And then also, if you guys have any ideas for us for Instagram or YouTube content or live stream content, feel free to drop us some ideas in the comments, and we'll see what we can do. And we got a couple videos coming your way. Like we said at the beginning of the video, we've been kind of off the grid for a while. We had a lot of work done in this room, a lot of rearranging, and then we had some travel and all that stuff. But we're back. We're going to be getting some content out for you guys. We got a then and now location video coming out in the next couple days, so be on the lookout for that. And somebody was saying, have you met Stump Monroe? We have not.
No.
But that would be cool. I have seen a lot of Elvis fans take their picture with him, so that'd be cool if we could get in touch with him. So
yeah, shoot us a line and tell us who you'd like to see us. We have contacts with different people, and let us know who you'd like to see. We just did Richard Sturban here back a few months ago, and that was, man, what an honor that was. And again, what a nice guy, man. And as you guys know, right after we saw him in concert, and then now they're wrapping it up. They're done. So if you get a chance, go online and see if they're coming on their farewell tour. I don't know if you guys, excuse me, if everybody knows this, but Richard Sturban sang bass with Stamps Quartet for about a year in 1972, right alongside J.D. Sumner. And he's in the movie Elvis on Tour. So go and then he went on with the Oak Ridge Boys. So if you get a chance, go see the Oak Ridge Boys on their farewell tour. And when you hear that deep bass voice that Richard Sturban has, he sang for Elvis. So go and bid him a fine farewell.
Yeah, and be sure to check out our video on that. A side note off that is, when we did the interview about a week later, we went and saw them live at the Oak Ridge Boys live in concert, and we were the third row back on Richard Sturban's side of the stage. And halfway through the show, they did a shout out for like a news company that had done an interview with them, and then they gave us a shout out for doing an interview with him. So that was really cool, and he gave us a thumbs up and everything. And then unknown to us, during Elvis week, they were performing, I think, in Mississippi, and they stopped in Memphis at a hotel for the night before leaving
Right across from us.
right across from us, and we didn't even know that. So somebody sent us a picture like, "Hey, Oak Ridge Boys are here." So, but yeah, I'll put up the thumbnail for our video that we did with Ron Strauss. So that's the thumbnail. It's our most recent video. So if you haven't seen it already, be sure to check that out. Like we said at the beginning, it's audio only because we were kind of on the fence about posting the video with copyright issues with Graceland. So we just decided to post the audio portion. Maybe down the road we'll post the video, but um, for now we got the audio portion. We took him back onto the Lisa Marie. He was a co-pilot for Elvis. So that was a really cool experience. So be sure to check out that video.
And again, tell your friends, tell your Elvis buddies about our channel. Tell them what we do. I've said this a million times before. I'll say it again. We are not monetized. I don't have anything against anybody that is monetized. That's entirely up to you. We don't do this for money. We pay our own bills, do our own thing, and none of what we do is for pay. So we don't receive anything from anybody. When we mention somebody's pictures and stuff like that, they don't send us free stuff, and there's no behind the scene deals going on. So Elvis did the work, and I don't feel that I'm really entitled to that. So we just go out and do it for the love of it, and we do it because we love sharing the stuff with you guys. And like I say, we're not perfect. We'll make a mistake here and there, but we try to keep it minimal, and we try to do it with class. And when we first set this up, for those of you that don't really know us, when we set this up, we kind of develop a code of ethics. How are we going to do this? What's going to be our way of doing work? And we basically agreed that when we did a video, that it would be like Elvis would come in and look at the final product, and if we thought that he liked what we just put out, then we'd shoot the video out. So that's kind of how we operate. So just so that you guys know where we're coming from. So let your friends know about us. Follow us on Instagram, because like I said, I'm doing that thing on the jumpsuits. And if you enjoy the jumpsuits, jump on there and we'll just go over some facts. And we do these diners about once a month. So come back and see our new diner next month when we do one. And we've got some good stuff coming up. So stay tuned.
Yeah, so we got a couple of videos coming out. We got one that I'll be uploading in a couple days from the location then and now. So be sure to be on the lookout for that. If you guys have any last questions or comments, you can follow us on here, subscribe to our YouTube channel, Elvis Back on Tour. Be sure to check out all the videos that we have. You might have missed one. Just make sure you check those out. Leave the comments. Let us know what you think. And then Instagram, that's where we're most active. Elvis Back on Tour as well. And then Facebook, that is EP Back on Tour. We had an issue with the Facebook a couple months ago, so we're EP Back on Tour there. So be sure to follow us on there. And if you guys have any questions or comments after we get off the live, this whole live stream will be uploaded to our YouTube channel. If you guys have any questions after the fact, you can email us, elvisbackontour@gmail.com, or you can leave us a comment on Instagram and or Facebook, and we'll try to get back to you as soon as we can. Sometimes on Instagram, we don't see your messages because Instagram will hide them from us. So that's not our doing, but we'll try to go in there every now and then and check them and see how many questions are, and we'll try to answer them all. So
thanks, Carrie. Thanks, Mike, for your nice comments. We really appreciate it.
Yeah. So thank you guys for joining. It was a hour and a half live stream, so it was a long one, but we thank you all for watching, and especially for the folks that watched from the beginning. So again, we'll post this on our YouTube channel, and we have a video coming out in a couple days on our YouTube. So be sure to check that out. And again, thank you guys for watching.